Cool. Hi everyone. Everyone hear me okay? Up the back? Good? Great. So yeah, that was pretty much my whole introduction to about half of my workshop, so we'll see if we can make that last a little bit longer now. As I said, my name's Neal Walters. I work for Canon Australia and I run Canon Collective out of Melbourne. Anyone heard of that before? Cool. Those of you who haven't, it's basically we do photography workshops and video workshops in Melbourne. But on the side of that, and where I started was in the music industry, as you can probably tell by that photo up there. So where I started off was with music photography, and going from my friends hitting me up because they knew I had a camera and they knew they could get some free photos, into working with some of Australia's biggest bands, which you said some of you have heard of the music. I'm not sure if a lot of you would have heard of the music, and some of it is going to get a little bit loud today, but I'll turn that stuff down. That's not going to be that interesting. But out of music photography led into music videography. And the main reason that I took up music videography and I got an interest with it was for the key reason that everybody that knew both of those things, photography and videography, was ahead of me. So the way that I found to get myself further in the industry and further in my career was to simply know as much as I possibly could, which seems like a pretty obvious thing, but it's not obvious to everyone. And it's the reason that I've been able to succeed, because when someone said, "Hey Neal, can you do this?" I've always ensured that the answer is yes, I can, even when I couldn't. My first ever music video, which you'll see, I had no idea what I was doing. Someone said, "Can you do music videos?" And I said, "I'm a veteran. I've been doing it for years." And I'd never done one before. I'm not promoting lying to people, but stretching the truth a little bit sometimes can get you a little bit further in the music industry. And everyone in the music industry can be a bit of a liar at one point or another. So the first music video, which is the last thing you'll see today, is pretty terrible, but it gives you a good idea of how far I've come. So let's get started in terms of music videos. So we're going to talk about two things today. We're going to talk about music videos and live music videos, which there's a little bit of a difference, because music videos is what you see on Rage on TV, and I'm not sure who else, Channel V and those kind of things. YouTube's the biggest music video provider these days, and where you'd pretty much see anything. I'm not sure if anyone's actually watched Rage in the last 20 years, but that's YouTube now is the key source of it. But this question I put in is an extremely difficult one to answer, because it's as subjective as you can possibly get. Because with a music video, what I think is a great music video, you might think is a terrible music video. And especially with the music, I'm sure some of you won't like the music that I'll play today, but the video content, it all comes down to, is it original? Because if it's not original and you're just ripping someone else off, then people pick up on it pretty quickly. I have ripped people off before, in terms of just taking an idea and building on it. And you'll see that probably with the first one. I snaked this idea from a couple of people, but made it my own, that's the kind of key, especially with photography and videography. You're always looking for inspirations, but as long as you can take those inspirations and then actually create something new out of it and fresh, then it's all good. But yeah, it's an extremely tough one to answer, but being original, creative, giving someone something to watch that they're willing to watch for more than 3.5 to 4 minutes, which is an average time for a music video, because holding someone's attention for that amount of time is very difficult to do. Even though you're all about to sit here for 40 minutes, hopefully I can be a little bit interesting, but getting someone to sit in front of their computer screen or TV for upwards of 4 minutes now is a very difficult thing to do, especially for anyone under the age of 20, which is most of my audience with my video work. But if you can create something that is interesting for that long, then that's the real key to it. So the other thing what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you all of my favorite music videos that I've done, and the first one, which doesn't fall under that category, but it'll give you a good idea. So the first one I'm going to show you is by a band called Tonight Alive. and it's a music video for Temple. So this was the biggest music video I ever did in terms of budget and responsibility that got put onto me for this music video. So for this one, I directed the video, I edited it, I produced it. The only thing I didn't do was shoot it. So when I started in my career, I did absolutely everything, the jack of all trades thing. So I shot my videos, I directed them, edited them, did the sound, everything. But as you progress in your career, you kind of pick a path. Because if I was still shooting and directing, it's a little bit of a logistical nightmare. So as you progress with videography, the idea is to do as little as you can and get paid as much as you can, as opposed to at the start, you get paid as little and you do as much. So that's the changing point. So my good friend and DOP, Sean Herbertson, which DOP is Director of Photography, for those of you who don't know what that term means, and that's basically the person that holds the camera. It's a fancy name for it, but there is a little bit more of a responsibility to it. He shot this one for me. It was shot on a Canon C700. All the stuff you'll see is shot on different levels of Canons, and I'll cover that here. So for those of you who don't know what the Canon C700 is, it's an expensive camera. It is one of those big beasts that is I think $35,000, something like that, I think, roughly around that range. So yeah, if you want to grab one, do you guys have one? No? Probably not? I'm sure if you're interested in one, let me know. But yeah, they're full production scale cameras that you can just do anything you want out of it. So they make movies with them, documentaries and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, we shot this on it. So what I'll do is I was thinking about just letting the music run, but I might talk over it just a little bit too, or even pause it in some sections just to give you a bit more of an understanding of why I did what I did. So let's go. So this is actually shot in Richmond. The original concept for it. Is everyone okay if I talk over it? No one's that interested in the music? Yeah, if you are, you just listen to it later on. Turn it down just a little bit. So the original concept for this video, my friend Jenna, who's the lead singer here, she came to me and said, I want to walk down the middle street of Richmond, stop traffic and dance like a crazy person. So we achieved half of that. I talked her down from wanting to walk down a busy street into blocking off a single street, because she wanted to do it on Swan Street, which I said we'll get arrested if we do that, and we'll have basically one shot at it. But this way we were able to spend the afternoon doing it. So that tracking shot, where this one where she's walking, we were actually sitting in the back of an open van, and we were just driving extremely slowly. So we didn't have to use a gimbal or walk behind her in risk of tripping. So it was myself and Sean. Sean was sitting on the back of the van and just slowly driving backwards, and that saved us spending $1,000 on a gimbal, like a big gimbal for that day. So cost-cutting measures are always appreciated. And we used complete natural light for this whole video too. So that shot there was in a big alleyway, and we had a reflector, just a huge reflector on one side, which bounced all the light back in and hit Jen. So that saved us getting a generator, lighting, all of this extra stuff. So reflectors are your absolute best friend when you're working with videos. If you're doing any kind of videography, especially outdoors, your second thing other than a camera you should own is a reflector. Even with photography, everybody should have a reflector. They're just a cheap light, pretty much. And if you're working, especially as it comes into the summer months, if you're working outdoors and you don't want to have to use, especially if you go and work down botanical gardens or anything, other than having to take battery-powered lights, you can just take a reflector, and if you know how to use it properly, it saves you a ton of money and kit carrying around too. Editing wise, I edited this whole thing myself on Premiere Pro. That's what I use, and it took about 2 weeks to edit the whole thing, I think, from start to finish. And I actually had Jen come in and help me out with the edits and give constructive feedback, which was sometimes like two forces going like this, saying I want one thing and I want the other, but you know, that's what work in the music industry is sometimes. It can be rock and a hard place, but what turned out to be pretty good, and we're sitting tidy with over 1 million views on this one now, which was which is nice to see a little bit of success through a video. So that's number one. So yeah, that was the first big clip that I ever really did, which leads me into the point of how to stand out from everyone else. So as you can see with a video like that, the way to stand out from everyone else is, did anybody think that dragged on that video, like it was too long? Be honest. Oh, that's nice. I thought someone was going to go, and I was like, yes, tell me. But that's the whole point. Like, it was fairly riveting. There was lots of changes, tons of colour, plenty of different cuts and such. So that was the one key point of how to stand out from everyone else, was to ensure that what you're doing is interesting and different to everyone else. So I'm pretty sure, like I hope, that there's not too many other videos which borrow heavily from that. There's been videos since that have borrowed heavily from that, which is, yeah, an interesting one, because there's quite a big female Australian artist, which if you look a little bit into it, you could probably find out who I'm talking about, who borrowed the idea for this video for their own, and that video is nearly sitting on 1 billion views now. So yeah, that was an interesting one. It's the first time that happened, where someone used my idea and created their own video for more of a success. But I won't say who it is, but if you do a little bit of digging, you can find out pretty easily. So the other way to stand out from everyone else, especially on a shoot like that, is to go, not only creating something that someone hasn't seen, but doing it in a way where people sit back and go, have you seen this, to someone else, to one of their friends? So it's the idea with photography and videography, really. You want people to talk about what you've done. You don't only want to hold their attention, but you want to sit back and go, how do I ensure that you are going to tell him about this? And so creating something where it's a little bit different, a little bit like those weird dancing things that she does, I want people to go, have you seen how crazy she goes in this video and how she looks like that? That's the whole point. She's just walking down the street, which is what that other person did in the other video I was talking about. It's far less interesting. You want to be at least semi-controversial with what you're doing and push something with a little bit more of an idea. You look at the best music videos going around these days, and there's always some form of controversial aspect to it. That's why so many punk, rock, heavier bands are using Donald Trump in their videos. It gets people talking about it. They're like, let's just talk about how terrible this person is in our music video, and then everyone that agrees with me is going to go watch that video. So there's a reason to that. There's a form of marketing behind it, which is always relatively interesting. Also, if anyone does have any questions at any time, please feel free to yell out, because, oh, geez, okay, go for it.
How do you record the audio? Do you record the audio before the shoot and then play it back to the actor?
Yeah, so every one you're going to see except for one, that's a track. So it's the actual CD audio. So what we did with these is we just had a PA, like a little amp, and we just played the music, so they mimed. Everything's mimed with music videos these days. Unless it's a live audio, then we would record the audio either on camera or through like a boom mic, so one of the big mics, we'd record it that way. But yeah, most stuff, especially with music videos these days, it's all pre-recorded, studio audio really, or it's through on-camera audio or off-camera audio too. Yeah.
When you say live, do they still actually sing with it?
Depends on the artist. Yeah. Jen, no. This next artist that I'll show you, yeah, he yells, screams is a word for it, and yeah, he does, because that's the way that he was able to give more of a passion behind it. You'll find that a lot of artists where it's less body work won't actually sing, and if they're kind of terrible, they won't do it either. So if someone's done a song where it's a bit auto-tuned, they'll never do it live. But yeah, for the most part, it's if they're good enough, they'll do it. They'll do it because you get more of a performance that way. Yeah.
What was the editing software again?
Premiere Pro. Yeah. Which is, if you come to my workshop on the 11th, I'll show you exactly how I do it. I'll show you a faster way of how to do it. But yeah, so I use Premiere Pro. I've always worked with Premiere Pro. Some people start with Final Cut or even iMovie, something like that. But when I first started doing videos, I dove into the best I could possibly do in every way, because I didn't want to start at a beginner base and work my way up. I wanted to learn from what everyone makes things off and yeah, learn as much as I possibly could. Yes, Mark?
When someone copies your work, or when you perceive them copying your work, do you take that as a compliment, or do you try and seek it out?
Depends on who it is. No, I'd never I'd never confront them. It's a semi-compliment. Yeah, as long as it's not like frame for frame. If someone had done a video where it was a girl walking down a street and then a girl in a bathroom and then in a club at the end, it would be a bit more of a different story. But yeah, the person who copied there was enough of a change for it to be, no, I'd never seen it. And you could kind of get away with it. But it was, I'll tell you who it is later. But yeah, that was a semi-compliment, especially with how big of an artist that person is. Anything else? Keep talking. Cool. I'll show you another one. Now this one, I'm going to turn the audio right down because he yells a lot. So this was, the reason I popped this one is this is, a lot of the videos I'll show you have a fairly hefty budget. That one was a very hefty budget, and it took multiple days and a massive crew and everyone. But this one here I'm going to show you is from a local band. Oh, sorry, they're not local, they're from Sale. So a local to the Gippsland region called Ocean Sleeper. And they were a bunch of younger kids that just wanted to create something really, really cool. So we did something extremely cheap, and by extremely cheap I mean under 5,000, and we were able to create this video for them. So the whole premise of this clip, I'll turn it up just a little bit. So this is just to give you an idea of yelling. No need for you all to hear that. So he gets very screamy. So the whole point of this video, can you scrap these lights for a sec? Is that possible? Thanks. That's better. So the whole point of this video was one huge light above them and two lights either side, which were those flashing ones. So that one huge light above, we had a fader, so you were able to control that light, and especially that scene at the start where it's up, down, that's the only effect that I used. So this whole video is all in-camera effects, and you can see it's very basic, but again, we're able to keep it interesting for 3.5 minutes or however long it goes for. So yeah, see that fade up and down then, that's not an editing trick at all. That is it being pitch black and me moving the fader up and then moving the fader down. So I was on this one, I didn't shoot again, but I directed, I did all the lighting, I was a gaffer, I was the best boy, everything for this video except shooting it again, just because of the amount of responsibilities. But yeah, you see that one there, it's literally one light going up and down. Yeah?
Where did you shoot that?
It was at an old meat house in North Melbourne, I think. So it used to be where they kill cows and everything, and now it's just, it's actually a live music venue. I can't remember what it's called, but if you search Meat House live music venue in North Melbourne, I'm pretty sure that'll be. But yeah, it was maybe. Yeah. But they hold gigs and everything there, and because it was such, we needed a huge open space, so the background was blacked out. Because if you have your settings right on your camera, you can create a completely black room without there being black curtains or anything. So you're able to see it sometimes on the side, but yeah. Yeah.
How familiar do you have been with bands and music?
to both direct and shoot something like this?
Look, I like to be extremely familiar with them. So even if I knew these guys for a while, but I didn't know this song until a week before we did it, really, because it wasn't ready. They hadn't actually recorded it yet. So we recorded it, had a rough version, and we did the video. I like to be familiar with them, especially the movements, how each person is, how they perform individually. Because if I go in and direct a video and they don't know me and I don't know them, it's very hard to get a gauge on how to tell someone to perform. Whether they like to be told how to perform, those lights again, whether they like to be told how to perform, or whether they're just I know what I'm doing. Because there was some bands that I've worked with. I've worked with a band called Parkway Drive, and that was the biggest band that I've ever worked with. Their video is nearly on 10 million views that I did. It was great. I didn't put it in today because it's a little bit too heavy. But if you want to look at that, there's a video called Pray by Parkway Drive. And they're all like 35, 36-year-old guys. They know what they're doing. There was no directing of that. It was put cameras in front of them and say, this is what I want, and it was done. We knocked that video out in like 4 hours or whatever it was. Yeah.
Did you shoot that last time in black and white, or did you do that in the editing?
I shot it in black and white, that one, because I knew exactly what we knew that it was going to be in black and white. So yeah, I did shoot that one completely black and white in camera. I'd never normally do that, but I wanted to show the band on the day, this is exactly what you're getting. But yeah, unless it's completely agreed upon, I wouldn't normally do that. I do it all in post-production. Yeah.
Do you storyboard all this?
The professional answer is yes, you storyboard everything all of the time. So my answer is no, I don't. I hate storyboarding. I really do. It is just a drain on my existence, and it takes so long. And you either have to draw or have references, and my drawing is not great. I'm a photographer and videographer, not an artist like that. So, but yeah, whenever I can, I have folders of references. I reference more than I storyboard. So with that video, for example, I had an old black and white video that I'd previously done and said, this is the exact kind of black and white that I want. And they were like, sick, we love that. With the temple video at the start, yellow was the big push in color that I went for. So I found yellow frames I use movies more than I use actual other music videos. So I'll use frames from movies that I've seen and show that as references. So the answer is yes, you should. If we were talking films, 100%. Like if I was doing a short film, I'd storyboard the hell out of it. But with a music video, I like to do things more on the fly. So I've got about 20% of the video worked out before I start shooting, and then a lot more of it is on the day going, oh, how about we do this and this and this and this, and that's the way it's worked for me. But yeah.
And that's when you're shooting, like you've got some wide shots, so you've got some shots, just one form of wide
Yep.
shots that you use for the roaming. Do you, if you get a one form of the cell, you shoot that a number of times and play the same song? How many times do you go through it?
That's a great question. I have a rule of close, mid, wide for everything. So if I want a full band shot, I'll shoot a close one. So we'll have camera on a shoulder rig, nice and close, moving around, getting everything. And then I'll shoot a mid shot, same thing. And then I'll shoot a wide. And that's my rule with everything I've ever done, even with photography. Close, mid, wide, and then I generally do three, with photography, close, mid, wide, 3 levels. So I'll go high, so close, high, close, mid, close, low, mid, high, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. With videography, it all comes down to how much time I have. If I'm working with, a half a day video shoot, that close, mid, wide might turn into close, wide. And just the lead singer and then the full band. Like you have priorities, but when I work with a producer, they'll have a shot list. So I'll have that, guitarist 1, close, mid, wide, and then they'll be checking it off saying done, done, done. So, and then they'll write down the file name too. So anyone ever seen a clapper before? Yep, that's exactly what that's for. So they'll mark it, they'll write down exactly what it is, they'll write down if it was something to print and then what shot it was. So when you're in the editing process, you can go back and go, I need a close of the lead singer from this angle, and you can go, it's that file name, drag it in, done. Make sense? Any other questions on that? Cool. This is how I got successful. I made friends and I made connections. It's as simple as that. Everybody that I worked with, I was nice to. And I worked hard. I just busted my ass from day one. I'd always, anyone that I've ever worked with, you could ask them, except for a couple of people, I am nice to be around. I hope so, anyway. And I've just worked as hard as I possibly could, and that's how I worked. That's how I got to work with a band called North Lane. And this is, I think, the only live music one that I'll show you. So this is from the Roundhouse in Sydney, I think last year, or the end of the year before. So I liked, when I do live music video, like a live video of a show like this, I always like to incorporate off stage, on stage, capturing the whole atmosphere, showing things that people will never see, such as backstage things, and then things that people did see but in a completely different way. I love slow motion. Sorry. Yeah, capturing things like, I love slow motion with live music. It just looks better, I think, but not all the time. So you can see in terms of this, that slow motion with the lights, it just adds a whole new element to it. So yeah, making friends that's the key, really.
How many cameras did you have for that?
One. Me, one camera. Yeah. I'm just about to go on a tour with that band in the US for a month and a half, and I'll take one camera and 2 lenses, and that's it. I take, what camera? Yeah. Huh? That was with 1DX2 and a 16-35 and a 20, oh, hang on. So it was a 1DX2, a 16-35 and a 24-70. Yeah. That's my go-to beast of a camera, but that's all I take with me when I go and do live music. Alternatively, so how I started out with gear, I'm just being cautious of time now. Gear-wise, I started out shooting with a 600D, and then I scrapped that as soon as I could afford a 5D3. Shot with a 5D3 forever, got a 5D4, and then got a 1DX2. So that was my progression. Always use the same lenses when I'm shooting live music. I've always used a 16-35 and a 24-70. I need that nice wide big stuff, and I need the 70mm at 2.8. So those close shots you saw in that one are just because I get relatively close to the band. We're pushing right up front of the stage. That 70mm that's the go. Yeah.
Why not a C200 for example?
Honest answer, too big for me. And it doesn't take photos. That's the other thing. Because what I'm doing is I need something that hangs over my shoulder, and I can shoot candid photos of the band. I can shoot stage stuff. I'm just clicking in between video and photo, ready to go. With a C200, they're great, and I've used them before. If I was just doing primarily, like only video for one band, I'd use a C200. Or depending on the budget, like a C300, yeah. But yeah, in terms of why I use just one camera, because I need something you can just flick between. Live stuff, it's just, everything's changing every 2 seconds, even less. So you want to be able to adapt and do as much as possible. That's why, like, now what I'd, if I was to choose now, I'd go on probably an EOS R and a 1DX. They'd be my 2, or an EOS R, or even the new G series. Was it 3, isn't it? G7X3. That's the one I'll be getting. So I'll have that for my photography, run and gun stuff, and then the either the 1DX or the R for the other stuff. Yeah. I'm just gonna. That's pretty obvious. I think I've spoken about that a fair bit now. Okay. Just talking about again budgeting wise and everything, this was the video that I made the least amount of money on ever. I actually paid $50 to do this video. And it was a huge budget, and I got that budget wrong. I overpaid some people, and it cost me $50 to make this video. But there's a good reason why. Because this clip was the most amount of money I've ever spent on production. Because we had to create this whole box with all the lighting. Everything was from, so it was actually a greenhouse, and we scrapped it out, and on the inside of this box was mirrors. So we got this like, I don't know how you describe it, like this stick-on mirrors. So it reflected everything, and then we had to buy this lighting and modify it so we could bend it and turn it, and yeah, it was pretty hectic, but it turned out pretty good. So this is what production can do if you really put your mind to it. It makes it look pretty interesting, and obviously they wanted a yellow theme for the whole album. Sorry, I know it's a little bit loud. Obviously they wanted a yellow theme for the album, I think you can probably guess. And again, what I was speaking about at the start, being controversial, making her dance like that again, and showing this huge yellow thing and all that, you want people to want to watch this. And even just the thumbnail to this video, you look at it and you go, what the hell's that? That's the idea. You want to push through that. So I might move on because you get the idea. Settings wise, this is one of the main things that I ignored when I first started. I thought that it was more about what I could do later on with the footage than what I was doing in camera and as I was shooting. One of the main things where I started getting a little bit better and I started working with more people, the amount of time that it takes professional DOPs and lighting people to set up as in terms of actually shooting is unreal, because they're getting everything perfectly right way before they shoot. So if you're running into it and going, okay, that'll do, let's just see how it looks. Let's just see how it looks on a set is the worst thing you can say to a director. Because if my DOP said that to me, I'd say, no, let's get it right and let's not waste any time. So settings wise, it's the only way to go, is just know your camera, know your lenses, know exactly what those lenses can do. Because if you're just going, all right, I'm just going to use a 50mm for this shoot and that's all I'll bring, is what happens if you need a wide shot? What happens if you need a different depth of field there? What happens if you need different focal length? There's just always knowing exactly what you need to shoot and how you need to shoot it before you touch any, or before you press record at all. It's always a pretty vital thing. This is, I think, what we touched on before, knowing your act, knowing your band. If any of you are actually going to go out and shoot music, just the best thing YouTube's given us in terms of the music industry is access to full live sets from bands. You can just Google, you can put into YouTube pretty much any band live set and you'll have a full live set of that band pretty recently too. So you can look it up, you can research exactly what they do. So if you were going to shoot a North Lane show, for example, like my band that I work with, there's a full set on there from like a week ago in Japan. So you could watch that whole thing and then go, okay, so that's the last song they play, and I know that like confetti goes off in that last song, so I pick my vantage point, and I have a little list written down all the time with going, okay, so song 3 I need to be here, song 10 I need to be here. It's knowing those kind of vantage points, hugely important. That one's boring. Let's go to the next one. So, any more questions or anything? Because this is the last video that I'll show you. But you can ask things after that too. Yeah?
You referred to one of the singers as he shouts a lot.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to understand the words, or it's just about the noise?
You sound like my dad, that's what he says. he goes, I can't understand what he's saying. It's like, Yeah, that's a good question. Ask them. Yeah, look, it's a young person's kind of thing with little respect for the English language. I think they they scream pretty loud, and most of the time you can't really understand what they're saying at all. So the answer is no, you're not really meant to understand it. I think it's meant to be more of a feel to the song, I think.
You know the old saying? If it's too loud, you're too old.
Yeah, well, I'm getting too old. I don't like being around it now. I prefer listening to the... I like jazz. I wish I could work with jazz musicians. That would make me really happy, but most jazz musicians don't care about music videos, unfortunately. It's like, they want to sit in a bar and drink a nice glass of whiskey and a cigar. Yeah.
In the last video,
Yeah.
who designs the makeup? Do you need?
Oh, we got a makeup artist for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never done makeup in my life, thankfully. So, yeah, I look pretty, but I don't do it. It depends on the band. So in that video, Jen, the lead singer, she organised her own makeup artist because she'd worked with her before and someone she could trust. If it was for example, in this next video, all of the guys needed makeup. So they needed just a rough touch-up, so I organised a makeup artist to come along for that. Most female artists will organise their own because they work with people that they trust, and it's far harder to please a female-fronted band than it is a bunch of guys who are just like, I don't care. But with Jen, her look is very, very important. So, yeah. Yeah.
Process to get gigs on tour, and how do you go about speaking to
As in for me to get on tour?
advice and that
Yeah. Look, it's tour's fun, but the best thing you can possibly do is just be well renowned enough where you actually work. So from your state. So you're based out of Melbourne. Yeah, so the best thing you can do is want people as many different people to work with you in Melbourne. Because international tour is fun, Australian tours aren't that great. Because it's like a 5, maybe 6 run show spread over weekends. It's fairly rushed, and the best thing you can want is for as many people to work with you as you can. Yeah, I've been pigeonholed. Yeah, it's really hard for me to work with anyone else now that's not a heavy music act. But at the same time, I don't search for it anymore. I'm semi-retired out of the music industry because I work for Canon all the time. So that's going to mess up the mic. I work for Canon full time now. So me actually going out and touring is getting harder and harder to do, and I'm getting older, so I don't want to do it as much anymore. It sounds a lot of fun, but yeah, when I say older, I'm 31, so it's not that old, but yeah. But 31 in the music industry is like 85 in the real world, so it's not, yeah. I'm doing it far less now, but because I'm very picky with who I work with. Yeah. I know we've got a minute and a half, so is there one more question? Yeah.
creating the concept for the video, is that usually collaborative with the artist, or?
Depends on the artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the bands, I'm just going to put this on and you can kind of watch it in the background. Some of the bands that's, also to give you a reason why those effects are there, that flash is meant to go with the music. So it's not just a weird editing technique.
Is this your first clip?
My first clip, yeah. My first, like, proper clip. I did stuff before that no one will ever see. Yeah, like this song, I came up with the whole thing. I directed it, I shot it, I edited it, I lit it, the whole thing was me. And yeah, I came up with the whole concept, which is a pretty basic concept, play in a room with a weird background, pretty much. And because the lead singer is extremely animated, it was relatively interesting the whole time. But in terms of like the Tonight Alive ones, that was me and Jen wrote all of them. So the lead singer and I wrote the whole thing, and we went from there. We're out of time. Yeah. So yeah, that's that video anyway. So thanks for listening.